All right, let's dive into this. The power of saying less. What if the secret to sounding more authoritative wasn't about saying more, but actually saying less? It's a really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea, and that's what we're digging into today.
So picture this. You're in a super important meeting, and you have to defend a big decision. What's your gut instinct? Probably to just pile on the reasons, right? Throw all the data you have at them, give all the context, anything to prove you've got this. But what if that's the absolute worst thing you could do? What if all that extra information is actually making you look less authoritative?
Okay, so that instinct to just overshare, it actually comes from something called the transparency fallacy. Basically, it's this myth that more is better, that more information automatically equals more clarity. Well, let's go ahead and bust that myth.
At its heart, the transparency fallacy is this trap we all fall into. We think if we just bury our listener in details, we'll win them over. And, it comes from a good place. We're just trying to be super clear. But the result? It's the total opposite of what we want.
But here's the real psychological kicker. When you over-explain, the person listening, they don't hear thoroughness. Nope, they hear a lack of conviction. It sounds like you're not confident in your own message, like you're practically begging them for validation instead of just owning it. So what is going on inside the listener's head when we start rambling? Because let's be real, they aren't just sitting there passively soaking it all in. Oh no, they're basically putting your entire message on trial.
Think about it like this. Every single piece of information you give someone, it isn't free. It has what's called a metabolic cost. It takes real mental energy for them to process it. So when you overload them, you're not helping. You're just making their brain tired.
And this mental exhaustion, it forces their brain down one of two paths. On one hand, a concise, confident message, that triggers executive reception. They're ready to listen, accept, and act. But an over-explained, rambling message, that triggers critical evaluation. And now their brain is actively, and I mean actively, hunting for holes in your argument.
So why the sudden shift? Why do they go from ready to act to full-on critic? Well, it's because all that extra detail screams that you don't really own your conclusion. It's like you're dumping a box of puzzle pieces on the table and asking them to put the picture together for you.
And this all leads us right into the language of authority itself. Because how we structure our speech, man, that signals our status way before the actual words we use ever do.
Here's the key principle. Real authority doesn't feel the need to show all its work. It operates from a place of, get this, informational asymmetry. You know way more than you're saying. It's like an iceberg. That huge, unspoken chunk of knowledge underneath the surface is what gives the little bit you do say all its weight.
And you can see the two extremes here so clearly. On one side, you've got the high-status actor. They use low-entropy communication. That means high meaning, very few words. It's direct. On the other side, you've got the subordinate speaker. They use preemptive reconciliation. It's basically a defensive move, arguing against objections that haven't even been raised yet. It just immediately puts you in a lower status position.
So being able to take a really complex idea and boil it down to a simple, powerful statement, that's not just a sign of good communication, it's a massive status marker. It shows everyone you're confident in what you know.
Okay, so what's really going on here? What's the root cause of all this over-explaining? Well, when someone just can't stop talking, they're not just sharing information, they're actually revealing something else entirely, a leakage of anxiety.
Let's break that down. First off, when you can speak concisely, and more importantly, when you're comfortable with silence, that shows you have an internal locus of control. It screams that you're calm, you're regulated, and you're not fazed by a little social pressure. Over-explaining? It's the total opposite. It's this reactive, almost frantic rush to fill any potential silence, what you could call the communicative vacuum. This isn't a behavior that comes from a place of deep conviction. It's driven purely by external pressure.
And here's the punchline to the whole thing. The listener might not be thinking this consciously, right? But their subconscious brain, it picks up on that frantic energy. It registers it as a leakage, a dead giveaway that you're anxious and feel like you're losing control of the whole situation.
So all of this, it all comes together in one final crucial concept that really defines the entire power dynamic. And that is the burden of proof. The question is super simple. Who feels like they have to do all the explaining?
It's something called the dilution effect. Get this, when you pile on a bunch of weaker, secondary reasons to support your main point, you're not actually making it stronger, you're diluting it. You're basically signaling that your main argument is too weak to stand on its own 2 feet.
And really, it all boils down to this one fundamental power dynamic. High-status people, they expect other people to explain themselves to them. But low-status people, they feel this constant, nagging compulsion to explain themselves, their actions, even their presence. It's a total flip in posture.
And man, this quote from the source material just nails it perfectly. Verbosity is a psychological admission that one's word alone does not carry sufficient weight. Wow. I mean, it's all the extra work you do, when deep down you believe just being there isn't enough.
So here's the thought for you. In your very next conversation, your next meeting, just ask yourself this one question. Who is carrying the burden of proof here? Because the answer to that, well, that's going to tell you exactly where the real authority in the room is.